the feeling that the world you see is not the full picture? That nagging suspicion in the dead of night, the fleeting thought in a moment of quiet, that this reality, with all its rules and routines, is little more than a grand illusion? I'm not talking about the simple act of opening your eyes after a night's sleep or the jolt from a strong cup of coffee. I am talking about a genuine, world-shattering awakening. That terrifying, magnificent moment when the veil of ordinary perception rips, even for a second, and you catch a glimpse of the machinery whirring behind the simulation. It's a peek behind the cosmic curtain, a look at the puppeteer's hands pulling the strings of what we call life. Once you have seen it, once you have tasted that absolute, terrifying freedom, you are forever changed. But here is the shocking truth they never tell you in any spiritual book or seminar. The price of this knowledge is a profound silence. There are certain truths, certain earth-shattering revelations that you simply cannot share. Not because they are part of some ancient secret doctrine guarded by robed figures on a mountaintop. No, the reason is far stranger and more fundamental. Trying to communicate these truths is like trying to describe the color magenta to a person born seeing only in black and white. It is like trying to pour the entire Pacific Ocean into a single teacup. The vessel of language, of human intellect, simply shatters under the weight. Attempting to do so doesn't lead to enlightenment for others. It creates chaos. It breeds more confusion, more madness than the blissful ignorance it seeks to replace. You become a madman shouting about a new dimension to people who can only perceive three. They will nod, they will smile politely, but they will back away, certain you have lost your grip. That is why the truly awakened have always walked among us in silence, guarding a terrible and beautiful secret. They understand that these are not facts to be taught, but realities to be experienced. Over the next hour, we will unlock the forbidden knowledge. I am going to reveal the 8 sacred truths that a spiritually awakened person must never, under any circumstances, share. This is not a guide to becoming a part of an exclusive club, but a survival manual for those who have already seen too much. And the first secret is the one that causes the most damage when spoken aloud.
And so we come to the first and perhaps most violated sacred rule. The moment you awaken, the very instant the universe reveals its astonishing secret to you, you are filled with a seismic, almost unbearable urge to share it. You want to grab the nearest person by the shoulders, shake them, and scream, "Look, it's all right here. We have been searching in every direction, but it was inside us the whole time." It feels like a crime to keep this liberating truth to yourself. You believe you have found the cure for human suffering, and you are compelled to administer it to everyone you meet. But what happens when you try? They look at you with a mixture of polite confusion and genuine concern. They will nod, perhaps even say, "That's wonderful for you." But behind their eyes, they are quietly dialing for an ambulance or planning an intervention. Why this disastrous disconnect? Because your awakening is not an idea. It is not a clever concept that can be downloaded from your mind into theirs like a software update. It is a lived, visceral reality. It is the chasm of difference between reading a book about swimming and the shocking, total immersion of being in the water. You can try to describe the water to someone who has never been wet. You can talk about buoyancy, about the temperature, about how it supports your body, but they will only hear words, empty sounds, signifying nothing. The actual lived sensation of the water moving around you, holding you in its embrace, that cannot be captured by the clumsy net of language. Trying to explain awakening is like trying to explain the color red to someone born blind. You can speak of wavelengths of light, of passion, of fire, of the flush of a lover's cheek, but you can never, ever transmit the raw experience of redness. Awakening is 1,000 times more subtle than that. There is a well-known story of a man who, while walking in his garden one evening, had a profound spiritual experience. Suddenly, the boundary between himself and the world dissolved. He saw with a clarity that brought tears to his eyes that he was not a separate being walking through a garden. Instead, he was the entire process of gardening itself. There was no walker, no path, no flowers. There was only one singular, shimmering event of walking, gardening. He was so ecstatic, he rushed inside to tell his wife. He poured out his heart, his voice trembling with the magnitude of his revelation. She listened patiently, and when he was done, she smiled and said, "That's nice, dear. Now don't forget to take out the rubbish." He had just witnessed the secret of creation, and she was asking him about household chores. But she wasn't being cruel. She simply could not receive what he was trying to give her. And here is the most insidious trap of all. If you insist on sharing, you will inevitably begin to sound like you are bragging. I have seen the truth. I am free from the ego. I understand what life is really about. In that moment, you have created a division. You have placed yourself on a pedestal as the awakened one and the other person down below as the unawakened one. You have just contradicted the very core of your insight, that there is no division, no separation, no you and them. You have fallen for the ultimate spiritual ego trip. The truly awakened person learns to be quiet not out of some false modesty, but because they understand that talking about it is like a finger pointing at the moon. The finger is only useful if someone uses it to look at the moon. But if they become fascinated by the finger itself, they will miss the celestial body entirely. And most people, when you try to share your awakening, become utterly obsessed with your finger. They will ask what you did, what technique you used, what secret you learned. But that is the final cosmic joke. Awakening did not happen because you did something. It happened when you finally stopped doing anything at all.
This leads us directly to the second great unspoken law. You must never share the specific methods or practices that worked for you. Now, this sounds immediately contradictory, doesn't it? If you have discovered a map out of the labyrinth, isn't it an act of supreme generosity to share it? But here lies a subtle and dangerous poison. What worked for you worked because it was the precise medicine for your specific ailment at that particular moment in your life. It perfectly matched your temperament, your conditioning, your unique brand of confusion. Imagine you have a pounding headache. You take a specific pill, and within 30 minutes, the pain vanishes. A miracle. Does this mean you should now hand out this pill to everyone who complains of a headache? Of course not. One person's headache may be caused by dehydration, another's by extreme stress, a third by a food allergy, and a fourth by something far more sinister. Your miracle pill might be useless for them, or worse, it could be actively harmful. Spiritual practices are exactly like this. They are potent medicine, not candy to be handed out freely. I might find liberation by sitting in absolute silence, watching my breath. In that stillness, I might finally see through the illusion of the separate self. But if I tell you that you must sit and watch your breath, you might spend the next 20 years doing just that, achieving nothing but a sore back and a deep sense of failure. Why? Because your particular knot of suffering is tied differently from mine. Your path out of the maze requires a different key. Giving you my key is not just useless, it's cruel. It locks you into a path that was never meant for you.
Recent controversial studies from a fringe European institute have even theorized that every human consciousness has a unique noetic frequency. A practice that resonates with that frequency can unlock incredible states of being. But a mismatched practice, they claim, can create a psychic dissonance, a state of heightened anxiety and mental fragmentation. There is a story of a devoted student who came to his master, his face etched in frustration. "Master," he said, "I have been meditating for 5 long years, exactly as you instructed. I have sat for thousands of hours, and still I have not had any glimpse of awakening." The master looked at him, a strange smile playing on his lips, and then he began to laugh. He laughed so hard his shoulders shook. Through his laughter, he said, "Perhaps you should stop meditating." The student was horrified. "But you told me to meditate. It was your primary instruction." The master's smile softened. "Yes," he said, "and for 5 years you have turned meditation into another form of striving, another way of trying to become something you think you're not. You have polished the technique to a brilliant shine, but you have missed."
The third sacred commandment is perhaps the most difficult for a kind soul to follow. As your perception sharpens, you develop a form of psychic 20/20 vision. You begin to see people with a devastating, penetrating clarity. It's not that you can read their minds, but you can read their patterns. You see the intricate architecture of their ego, the hidden fears that dictate their choices, the childhood wounds that puppeteer their adult relationships. You can see when they are operating from a place of desperate insecurity, when they are defending a fragile self-image, and when they are hopelessly lost in a story they have told themselves 1,000,000 times. And with this terrible clarity comes a tremendous, almost righteous temptation, the urge to help them by pointing it all out. This is almost always a catastrophic mistake. You must understand that this impulse, which feels so compassionate, is a subtle form of violence. Why? Because people are not ready to see themselves until they are ready. And when they are ready, the insight will bloom within them naturally. They do not need you to be their mirror. In fact, if you force them to look in the mirror before they are prepared, they will not see their reflection. They will only see your judgment, and they will smash the mirror. Think of a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. You see its desperate, agonizing fight, and your heart aches. You think, "I must help this poor creature." You take a small pair of scissors and carefully snip the cocoon open, freeing the butterfly. And in doing so, you have condemned it to a life of crawling. It will emerge, but its wings will be weak and shriveled. It will never fly. That desperate struggle was not an obstacle. It was a non-negotiable part of the process. The pressure of the fight is what forces fluid from its body into its wings, giving them the strength to take flight. In the same way, people need to struggle with their own confusion, with their own cocoons of ego. Your helpful insight, delivered prematurely, is the pair of scissors that cripples them. You rob them of the very struggle that was meant to give them their wings.
We now arrive at what is, without question, the most dangerous secret of all. This is the truth that can unhinge a mind, the revelation that has been whispered about in hushed tones as the great void or the abyss. This is the fourth rule. You must never share your direct experience of the emptiness, the fundamental groundlessness of all existence. When you truly awaken, one of the most profound and liberating shifts is the realization that there is absolutely nothing solid anywhere. Everything you once believed to be real and permanent, your identity, your memories, your body, the world itself, is revealed to be a shimmering, ephemeral dance. Your sense of self, which feels so concrete and continuous, is actually no more substantial than a river. You can point to it and say, "River," but if you try to grab hold of it, your hands close on nothing but water, endlessly passing through your fingers. The river is not a thing, it is a happening.
For the awakened mind, this is the ultimate liberation. It means you are not trapped inside the prison of your own history. It means that all your anxieties, your traumas, your carefully constructed identities are nothing but clouds passing through the vast open sky of consciousness. But for someone who has not seen this directly, for someone whose entire sanity is built upon the foundation of a solid self in a solid world, this truth sounds like absolute cosmic horror. It is the most terrifying news imaginable. It sounds like you are telling them that nothing matters, that life is a sick joke, that we are all just a random jumble of atoms destined for oblivion. You are not offering them freedom, you are sentencing them to meaninglessness. Psychologists who have studied spiritual emergencies have even given this a name: ontological shock, a state of profound dread and depersonalization when the illusion of a solid self is shattered prematurely. I once made this very mistake, an error and judgment I will never repeat. I was having dinner with a colleague, an intelligent, ambitious man. He was excitedly outlining his 5-year plan, the promotions he was aiming for, the person he was trying to become. He was sculpting his future self with a craftsman's dedication, and in a moment of profound foolishness, I leaned forward and said, "You know, there really is no you to achieve any of that. What you call yourself is just a pattern of thought, a habit of energy. It isn't real in the way you think it is." He stopped, his fork hovering halfway to his mouth. The color drained from his face. "What are you talking about?" he said, his voice tight with a mixture of anger and fear. "Of course I'm real. I am sitting right here. I have a past. I have plans. How can you say I am not real?" He thought I was erasing him, dismissing his entire life struggle as a meaningless illusion. What I was trying to convey was that he was so much more than the limited character he believed himself to be, that he was not a lonely, isolated self, but the entire universe expressing itself as him. But he could not hear that. He could only hear the annihilation of his identity, and without that identity, he felt he would fall apart into madness. This is precisely why the great spiritual traditions have always had outer teachings for the masses and inner, secret teachings for the initiates. It was never about elitism, it was about safety. The truth of emptiness is the most potent medicine in the universe, but in the wrong dose at the wrong time, it is a deadly poison. It must be approached with infinite gentleness, or it will shatter a person's world before they have the capacity to build a new one.
And now we arrive at the fifth and perhaps most socially explosive of the unshareable truths. This is the secret that, if spoken aloud, can make you seem like a monster in the eyes of the world. It is the realization that all rules, all moral codes, all the shoulds and shouldn'ts that govern human society are nothing but an elaborate game. When you wake up, you see with breathtaking clarity that concepts of good and evil are not cosmic laws etched into the fabric of reality. They are simply agreements, conventions we have collectively decided to play by. And in that moment of seeing, you realize you are utterly, terrifyingly free. You are free to play the game or not. But if you dare to announce this, if you say aloud, "I am beyond good and evil, for I see that morality is a human invention," what will people hear? They will hear that you have become a sociopath. They will believe you are about to start robbing banks, lying, cheating, and harming people, because the only thing holding you back, the fear of breaking the rules, is gone. They will see you as a ticking bomb of pure, unbridled selfishness. What they cannot possibly comprehend is that true, awakened freedom is not the freedom to harm, it is the freedom from the very impulse to harm. When you see the truth of unity, the fact that there is no real separation between you and anyone else, the desire to cause pain becomes a logical and biological impossibility. Harming another person from this perspective is not a metaphor for harming yourself, it is a literal act of self-mutilation.
It would be as insane and counterintuitive as deliberately punching yourself in the face. Why would you do that? The pain is immediate and entirely your own. The controversial Lynn Varela papers from the early 21st century, largely suppressed by mainstream neuroscience, theorized this exact phenomenon. They documented that in states of deep meditative insight, the brain's mirror neuron system becomes so hyperactive that it virtually eliminates the neurological distinction between self and other. The suffering of another person is experienced directly as your own suffering. Kindness is no longer a moral choice. It becomes a biological reflex, as automatic as pulling your hand away from a fire. But try explaining this to someone whose entire moral compass is built on external authority, on a holy book, a legal code, or the fear of social judgment. They cannot compute how you can be both free from the rules and yet act with integrity. To them, it is a terrifying contradiction. They will assume you are either lying about your freedom or you are secretly a monster biding your time. And so the awakened person learns to play the game beautifully. They become a master actor who knows with every fiber of their being that it is all a play. Yet they deliver their lines with absolute conviction and grace. They pay their bills, they stop at red lights, they treat people with profound respect. Not because they must, but because it is simply the most harmonious, skillful, and compassionate way to move through the world.
So there you have it. The 5 great silences, the sacred rules for those who have glimpsed the other side. You must not speak of your direct experience, lest you create division. You must not share your specific methods, lest you trap another in your own path. You must withhold your insights about others, lest you rob them of their own sacred struggle. You must guard the truth of the void, lest you shatter a mind not ready for it. And you must not announce your freedom from morality, lest you be seen as a monster. Does this mean you are condemned to a life of silent solitude, an enlightened hermit watching the world from a lonely peak? Of course not. The work is not to be silent, but to learn a new language. The awakened person learns to speak, but they speak lightly, as if their words were dandelion seeds carried on the wind. They suggest rather than assert. They invite rather than command. They know that all words are merely fingers pointing to the moon, and they never ever mistake the finger for the moon itself. They speak, but they speak in poetry, in metaphor, in questions. They are not giving answers. They are opening windows in the minds of others, letting in a sliver of light, and then stepping back to allow them to look for themselves. But even this is not the true work. The deepest teaching is not contained in words at all. It is in your presence. It is in the way you move through a room. It is in the quality of your silence, the warmth of your gaze, the sound of your laughter. People may not understand a single word you say about awakening, but they can feel when they are in the presence of someone who is awake. They feel it as a profound sense of peace, a sudden spaciousness in their own minds, a feeling that this person is somehow deeply and fundamentally at home in the universe, in a way that most people are not. Your very being becomes the sermon. You live the truth so completely that you radiate it without saying a word. This is the ultimate transmission, beyond all language and all concepts. And if someone comes to you truly ready, truly hungry for the truth, if they approach you not with idle curiosity, but with a soul that is genuinely searching, then by all means speak. But speak with the utmost humility. Speak not as a master, not as a guru, not as someone who has arrived. Speak as one beggar telling another beggar where to find bread.